Live. Morena koutou. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this morning's externally funded projects committee meeting of Kaipara District Council. We call it also the X-Fund committee meeting because it's externally funded projects. So we abbreviate that. So sometimes we call it that. But good morning, everyone, and welcome here this morning. I'm going to open this morning's committee meeting with a karakia. Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa pounamu te moana, hei hua rahi mā tātou I te rangi nei, aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou I a tātou katoa. For this morning's externally funded projects committee meeting, we have a very full agenda, and we have a few hours in which to run through this. Many interesting items ahead. But at this point, I will call for any apologies for today's meeting.
Mayor, if I might, I think Councillor Joyce Parkey might have dropped out and trying to come back in to try and see if she can unmute, because she was having problems unmuting. So although she's not present now, I think she's just sorting that out.
Okay, thank you. And possibly if everyone could open their chat functions, that may be helpful for this meeting as well, so that we can see any of those communications. Thank you. So we will assume that Councillor Joyce Parkey will be rejoining the meeting in a moment. Thank you. So the confirmation of the agenda, I would like to move the confirmation of the agenda, and am seeking a seconder for that. Councillor Erin Wilson-Collins, thank you. Is there any commentary regarding the agenda? No, thank you. All right, we're putting this to the vote now on the confirmation of the agenda. All those in favour, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Item number 1.4 on today's agenda, the conflict of interest declarations. Are there any conflicts of interest for any of these items? None. Thank you. That's very clear. Thank you. Moving on to section number 2 of today's agenda, which is the confirmation of the open minutes of the 18th of August meeting. Now I'm seeking a mover and a seconder for the confirmation of the open minutes of the 18th of August meeting.
I'll move.
Thank you, Councillor Wethy, moving that, and Councillor Curnow seconding that. Thank you. Is there any commentary regarding the minutes?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I had thought I tendered my apologies because I was a commissioner in the wind farm hearing on that date, but if I didn't actually send that email, but I thought I had. My apologies
too,
are not
actually.
recorded.
I don't recall it, but yeah.
Okay, so if it wasn't canvassed at the meeting, then it cannot be retrofitted into the. If it wasn't an apology tendered in advance, then it can't be made to fit back. Sorry. But those points are noted regarding Councillor. Sorry, are noted here in this discussion regarding Councillor Vincent and your comment here as well. Sorry. About Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock.
I see that I actually seconded the apologies motion. So it's, but I do have a memory somehow of mention of the fact that Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock was absent because of that hearing. I'm just not sure whether maybe she hadn't forwarded the email, or it hadn't been received or picked up by someone in advance. Don't know.
Mr. Maris, clarification, please.
Yeah, through you, Your Worship. Hey, if you, with the leave of the meeting, if we could perhaps leave this item for now until we get clarification from Councillor Delavaris Woodcock, and we'll see if we can get the email through. Just so to be clear, we could also adjust with the secretary, and we'll bring the minutes back to the next meeting if that's okay.
All right. Thank you. Is that satisfactory, Councillor Delavaris Woodcock?
Certainly. Thank you very much for the consideration of this matter.
All right. Thank you. We're back to any further commentary regarding these minutes? No further commentary. Thank you. Right, we're putting this to the vote now. All those in favour? Oh, sorry, I can't vote. And against? Thank you. Right, that's passed. Thank you. Moving on with the rest of our work for today. And thank you, Councillor Wilson-Collins. Sorry for doing some research there regarding back through the emails. So you can see that in the chat there. Councillor Delavaris Woodcock's apology being sent on the 8th of August for that meeting. So that will come through in the corrected notes of that item. Thank you. Moving on with the rest of our mahi for today, and we're getting on with our projects here, which of course is the function of this meeting. We're starting with the Kai Water irrigation project update. So kia ora, Joe Reid. Morena. Welcome to the meeting. You've got an interesting day ahead of you. Thank you. Cameras on. Thank you.
Morena, thank you, Your Worship. Good morning, councillors. So as per normal for the committee, I will take all of the reports as read. I will, however, today specifically talk about the impacts of COVID to each of the projects as well, as I can understand there'll be a level of interest around that, and just talk to any significant changes that may have happened on the projects from when the report was written. That's okay. So beginning with Kai Water, you will see in the report for Kai Water, we do now have the proposed crops for both Site 1 and Site 2. So these crop selections have been done using some of the information provided for the original Corollis report done by Northland Inc as part of the Kai Hub Works, and also working in partnership with in-house horticulture specialists, seed suppliers, regional stakeholders, and also researchers from Plant and Food, with a real focus on the Maori economic development. So that's how we've landed on these 8 crops that you can see here today. You'll notice the planting period at earliest is from November this year, which from the project side has given us some reassurance around the feasibility of that as well. And it will be a staggered approach we'll be taking to some of the planting on the sites. The intention is that we'll be planting 4 crops on each site, just to enhance the diversity and really showcase what that water irrigation can do in that space. In addition to this, we also actually have a media event happening right now, whereby we're putting out to the local community to select an additional crop to be planted at Site 2, so the Munganui Bluff site. This can be found if you're interested on the Kaipara Kickstart website. It closes on Sunday, 19th, and there's a selection of 4 different crops to be picked from. And so the intention is this will be a small section planted where it's easy access to the community as well, to go in, check it out, learn more about the produce and how it goes with irrigation. So far, the top picked crop is, excuse my pronunciation, but kangama, which I believe is a traditional Maori corn, followed second closely by beetroot. So anything to go for in it. From a COVID perspective, there has been no impact overall to the Kai Water project, either from a cost or overall programme perspective. So we're not expecting any implications on that side for now. And I'll leave it there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there questions for clarification? Councillor Delavaris Woodcock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Joanne, for the excellent report. It's very exciting to see that list of crops planning to go in the ground. My question, two questions. Firstly, where are the markets? What work has been done to secure markets for the crops when they are produced? And attached to that question is, will the growers go through the grower certification program so that they can actually sell them on the market?
So the agreement with the ministry as part of the Kaipara agreement, there was to be no commercial impact from these projects. So the crops actually are intended to be given through the local community, gifted to the local community as opposed to be treated commercially. So no, we wouldn't be looking to do any commercial registrations of the crops. It's purely to demonstrate what can be grown.
Is that, I'm struggling to see the point of, I understand that they will be used by the community, therefore not wasted, but I also think that it would be valuable to test the market with the crops, you know, in February 2022, to learn if there is a niche market or whether that crop would be surplus or whether they would flood the market. So that's part of the learning, surely, with this exercise.
The Kaipara Kai Hub in the initial research did do market analysis as part of that. So we've done testing of the market to understand the potential return on yields of crops. As to the opportunity for us to test that with the live products themselves, unfortunately, without a revision to the contract terms between ourselves and MB, that's something that we wouldn't be able to pursue at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Curnow, question, and Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock, would you please lower your digital raised hand? Thank you. Councillor Curnow.
Yeah, just following on from that, what sort of volume of crops are we looking at here? Because I'm just thinking, yeah, is it, yeah, would it be sufficient for any kind of market testing, or is it really just, yeah, looking to have a few boxes full? Do we know?
From my understanding, it will be more than a few boxes full. However, I don't believe it would be sufficient to that commercial level. But I don't know an exact number, sorry, Councillor.
Right, but your understanding is that it's not sufficient to warrant a commercial approach at this point?
That's my understanding, yes. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question, Joe, and this is pertains, if you like, to the whole notion, in fact, of having water available in a time of the year where we normally never have water available in Kaipara, and especially Te Koparu, which is, according to the Northland Regional Council rainfall maps, basically part of the driest part of Northland. So this is extraordinary. I had thought that we were talking about a double crop cycle in each location with the water that was available. So the first crop of whatever it was being harvested in January, say, if you look at your Te Koparu crop and you say your soybeans being harvested on the 17th of January, you could then potentially plant another crop and irrigate it in late January if you had water, and grow it right through until May or June. Has that been explored? Now, that was what I thought was in the original Coriolis reports, and in all of that thinking was about, if you like, truck and trailering two crops on the same piece of land in one 6 or 9 month period. Because, I mean, I'm coming here from my own personal experience, having grown crops commercially on the Ruai Flats and in Kaipara for over the last 30 years, about that second window. So what I'm talking about here is, has that been explored about the potential of using this water to actually generate a whole second crop in the same space?
We, as part of the early discussions with Northland Inc., initially the thinking was that we would do one crop per site, or at most two, with that view of doing a swap out as well. Their feedback has been around this proposal of 4 crops per site to greater show the diversity, and again allowed that staggered approach. My expectation would be that if we look at site 2, for example, and the edamame beans with the harvest at the end of January, my expectation would be we then look to plant something in that same section from February onwards. What that looks like with Northland Inc. right now, I think it's still to be worked through, to be honest, Your Worship.
So my question therefore would be, when would we see that, what that second crop is going to be? Because those seed orders should all be being made now. And very importantly, it's not about showing what can be grown in the springtime, because frankly, you have more than 1,000 hectares of maize that's planted in Kaipara in October that lasts 110 days. So that, and it's all a current crop, so we don't need to know. Te Koparu will grow beautiful sweet corn, and that doesn't need irrigation. But what does need irrigation is a second crop in the dry part of the summer, and when we're looking to climate change and so on, that's that's why the investment's going in, because we don't need it for the low-hanging fruit.
So the team right now, the primary focus has been looking at the crops which will be planted for that spring season as directed. Once we have that locked down, which will be by the end of this week, realistically, I think that's when heads will turn to what we do for that latter part, the second part, and as far as deciding the crops and then ordering seeds. But right now the focus is very much ensuring that we're well set up for this initial season. As far as deciding crops and ordering them as well.
Okay, thank you. That's very clear, Joe. Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? No further questions. Thank you. We'll go to statements on this item. Mover, sorry, wasn't it Councillor Vincent who moves this? No? Okay, right, we're seeking a mover. I'll move it then. Sorry. Thank you. And a seconder for this item, sorry. Councillor Curnow, thank you. Sorry, process slipped there by me. Okay, right, thank you. So on this item, this is encouraging to see the progress that's being made. However, I would have to express grave concerns and disappointment about the opportunity of what the irrigation represents not being harnessed. When we have climate change, when we have drought, when we have real challenges in this part of the map of New Zealand, it's less about spring crops and more about how to get things that are out of season. So I am very hopeful that whoever's working on this inside Northland Inc. would be able to go back to the original kaupapa for all of this, which is about building the resilience of Kaipara and making better crops here that are in different ways rather than growing what we already grow well. So I'm hopeful that this can be turned into a lead opportunity, which is what it needs to be. Thank you. Councillor Curnow, statement.
Yeah, I would agree that if there is an opportunity to do a second crop, that would be where the real lessons in how effective irrigation is would lie. But having said that, I'm really glad to see that there is a plan just to get started and to get on with it. But yeah, if we can start looking into that second season or that second crop, that would be really good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Withy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I endorse entirely your comments, Mr. Mayor. I really think we've lost the sort of direction that the elected member group were hoping to see, and I hope that by the next meeting we have, whoever's dealing with Northland Link will come up with a plan of how to actually plug that gap for a second crop starting in the January-February period for planting then, and utilising the irrigation as we had originally expected it to be utilised. So I look forward to next meeting when we see that, because that's where the real benefits and real returns are going to come from. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further statements? No further statements. Thank you. We'll put this report, the noting of this report, to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to the second item here for today, the Kaipara Wharves project update for September, and a mover for the noting of this report. Oh, and I can't see. Councillor Curnow moving that and Councillor Larson seconding that. Thank you. On your flags. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. So for Kaipara Wharves, we have just in the past month had a contract variation approved by MB to transfer the holding budget, which we've discussed previously, onto the Pahi Wharf project. So you'll now see that reflected in the report, and also to rebaseline the dates for both Poto and Pahi Wharf. So you'll also see that updated in the report in the milestones section. I'll talk to Pahi Wharf first. So Pahi Wharf, with regards to COVID, there has been a 3-week delay to works with the COVID lockdown. This has impacted the works that Hubans have been able to do. So Hubans are doing the repair timber works on the existing wharf. It will, however, be absorbed by the programme. So we're still on track for that 17th of December commission date for the Hubans component of the work. So that's positive. There's no financial impact due to COVID for the Pahi Wharf, and no other programme impacts, as Bellinghams are in the design phase currently. We held a site blessing on Thursday of last week with very limited attendees, just in reflection of the COVID guidelines at the time and the changing situation. So that was attended by one member from council, or one officer from council, sorry, rather. A couple of the representatives from Hubans and WSP, and Darren Shepherd from the Regatta Club. That has enabled site works now to commence, with Hubans started work on site on Monday of this week. So all moving ahead there. From a timber perspective, we've spoken before about the long lead times for timber currently across the country. Hubans do currently have enough timbers to start the work. We are still waiting on some to come over from, I believe it's just south of the Bombay Hills. We're optimistic it will arrive in the next few weeks and therefore meet the requirements of the programme. But it is a risk that we just need to be mindful of with both of these wharfs projects, as the supply chain is ever challenging right now. Bellinghams, as I mentioned, are currently working through the design component of the Pahi Wharf structure itself. And their intention is that works will start when in their local yard in level 3. Bellinghams are based in Auckland and their yard is in Auckland. So currently no further impact to the programme as they're working through the design, and that will just need to be reviewed as things progress and the situation unfolds with Auckland. Looking at Poto Wharf, also no impact there at all due to COVID. So no delay with Poto Wharf currently being in the design phase and no financial implications. So the design has begun and is likely to be completed by the end of October. so it's currently on target. And I'll leave it there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So questions for clarification, elected members. And if we can take these one wharf at a time, I'd say Pahi, we'll do Pahi Wharf first and then Poto second. Thank you. So regarding Pahi Wharf. I have a question, Joe, and it's with I'm seeking clarity really about the estimated completion date for the total project with regard to the Pahi Regatta being at anniversary weekend at the last weekend of January. It is the biggest water event on the entire Kaipara, and I had been led to believe from the earlier work in this space, and notwithstanding all the delays that are happening, that there would be like a 6-week construction period for the project, and that we would fit and get it all completed so that potentially we could get the Prime Minister to open the wharf pontoon, just like David Lange, as Prime Minister, opened the wharf originally back in 1987. My question is, how can we get this project completed in January so that it can be opened at the Pahi Regatta? This is one of the biggest events in the Kaipara. How can this be done?
It's something, so Jagdeep Singh, the project manager on this, on both the wharf projects, is very, very driven to try and make that happen. Naturally, he's been working a lot with the Regatta Club as well. The feasibility of it right now, I'd rather not comment on, to be quite honest, given that we are still waiting on further details from Billingham's once they've completed their preliminary design works. I think once we are at that stage of them being able to progress with the construction works, we'll have a much more reliable, clear idea as to what can be achievable. But trust me, Your Worship, it is something we are definitely driving to within the project.
Thank you. So I do have a second question, because you've got two contractors, Huban's working locally on the timber related parts, and then Bellingham's with the steel and concrete pile related parts. Can they be working there as two teams of people side by side? Are there two parallel project work streams, or is it all of the timber work has to be completed before any of the on-site Bellingham's work can be done?
So the vast majority of Billingham's work will be done off-site and then imported across to the Pahi area itself. There is some work that is required to be done by Hubans before Billingham's can come in. But that is why we've had Billingham's start just now, to allow for that lead time and run up as well. But majority of Billingham's is done in the yard.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Are there further questions for clarification regarding Pahi Wharf? No questions, thank you. Regarding Poto Wharf, any questions, elected members? Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is about the Boardwalk Construction in light of last week's heavy weather event that showed at Bailey's Beach waves going right up to the new boardwalk that has just been constructed. And I was wondering, in the design phase, what has been done to take into account extreme weather events so that this construction lasts for the duration?
So the design for the boardwalk component itself is still underway. So that's yet to be finalised. And as part of that, they have been looking at boardwalks that have been installed elsewhere in the Kaipara. Bailey's actually been one of that as well, Councillor. So the project manager will be taking the elements into account alongside where it sits in the coast. Yeah, it's part of the design, but it's not as yet finalised.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent. Question regarding Poto.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I've raised this question before. To what extent has the possibility of involving the local community in some way in the actual works, the land-based side of the project, to become involved in assisting, supporting, whatever, using volunteer labour to, I guess, in part help keep the cost down, but also in part enable the local community to feel part of it, of this project, and so that they in the end see that this is more as their wharf.
I think it's a very good point, Councillor. I think we may have touched on it before as well as part of this committee. It does sound familiar. What I'd like to do is see that we can raise this through our Wharfs Advisory Group, which has representatives from both communities on it currently, and gain their insight as to if that's something we would look to progress, and if so, how best to do that, with the support of our community advisor, if that sounds appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there further questions for clarification regarding Poto Wharf? None. Right, thank you. We'll go to statements, please. So I'm saying it's Councillor Curnow moves this, yes?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, I'm glad to see that we're now into a little bit more committed progress. I'm cautious about the impact of the Auckland lockdown, and I think I did raise a question just for perhaps discussion around what are the impacts likely to be of the Auckland lockdown, both in terms of getting things through Auckland and from Auckland, and but I guess we can, you did touch on that and say that, that we are aware of it. Is there anything that we can do about it? Perhaps not at this stage, but yeah, I'm interested to see how our timelines go with the impacts of this lockdown. But yeah, you do seem to be aware of that, so that's good.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Larson, seconding statement.
Yeah, good to see the progress, and I'm looking forward to walking out onto some of these structures. Thank you.
Thank you. And maybe a Manu bomb or two as well from you. That would be good. Thank you. Are there further statements from elected members in this space? A statement from me is that I'm very pleased to see progress is being made here. I'm very anxious about issues of the budget and creeping costs, and the COVID lockdown, and how the costs of that are being signalling on through this work, and those delays and supply chain challenges. What we don't want is to get close to the end and then fall short financially on the construction of these wharves. So and I'm looking forward very much to the opening of the Pahi Wharf at the Pahi Regatta in January 2022. It's going to be a wonderful event, I'm sure. Thank you. Are there any further statements? No further statements. Thank you. We'll put this to the vote now. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Right, moving on. Poto Road Phase 1. And I'm seeking a mover for the noting of this report. Councillor Curnow, thank you. And Councillor Vincent seconding that. Thank you. Joe.
Thank you. So Poto Road Phase 1 has experienced a 2-week delay due to COVID, and potentially a financial impact due to COVID of somewhere around 30,000, but that's still to be confirmed and still being worked through with the contractor. From a programme perspective, the delay will be absorbed by the overall completion date, so it's got no lasting impact on the programme. And as far as the financial impacts goes, we're still working through whether or not that can be absorbed within the project contingency. We believe it should be, but we're just not 100% confirmed right now. I would like to take the opportunity just to emphasise that as far as the COVID liability goes on these projects, the principal carries the responsibility of any financial overspend related to COVID where it's a valid claim, and there's set criteria that we work to as to what is appropriate and what is not. So our approach for any financial implications due to COVID would be, first of all, to sort it through the project contingency itself, which typically we always have a minimum of 10% contingency available. And so you'll see this in another couple of the reports later today, just where we've got that financial overspend, which we're looking to attribute to the contingency, but just so that that's clear for all of you councillors as well. Regarding the total phase 1 progress, we had initially always intended to do a winter shutdown for this project, which never actually eventuated, and in turn is, in a sense, became the COVID shutdown for the programme, which is why we're able to absorb that delay as well. So we're still very much tracking on target for completion. Optimistic we should be able to do that by January this coming year. And I'll leave it there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there questions for clarification? Poto Road phase 1. Right, we're going to take that. No questions. We're moving into statements on this. Councillor Curnow is the lead on this. Thank you.
Yeah, again, this is another project that I'm just concerned but happy to see that we are monitoring the impacts of the Auckland shutdown. Fingers crossed that is not for too much longer, and we can start to make those amendments and get some progress. But overall, it looks good, and I have a degree of confidence that the team are monitoring these impacts and managing them appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'd like to pay a tribute to the people that are with all of our externally funded projects. So, Joe, you have to carry this one on your shoulders. As the for the rest of the team, it seems that unless there is constant pressure applied, like it just doesn't happen. There's all these challenges we face at present in the economy, I suppose, in terms of like how the COVID lockdowns are slowing everything down in terms of supply of materials, availability of labour, and how they compound on each other. And I'm really appreciative of the efforts just to keep pushing all of these projects along. And I do have confidence in the project management team in doing that. So my thanks to everybody for that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Are there further statements? I'll provide a third statement here, which is I support what's been discussed here, and commend the team for getting on with the job in such a productive and straightforward way. So thanks to everyone. And it's great to see this progress coming through. Significant item indeed. Councillor Curnow, closing statement? No? No, thank you. Right, we're putting this to the vote now. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on, Poto Road phase 2. Is seeking a mover for this. I'll move that, and a seconder for this. Thank you. Councillor Wilson-Collins, thank you. So Poto Road Phase 2, Joe.
Thank you. So Poto Road Phase 2 is experiencing a 5-week delay currently due to COVID, with the expectation that this will not impact the overall completion date. Just for clarity on the completion date here, as you'll notice, the project milestone says expected completion September 21. The contractual required completion date for Poto Road Phase 2 is June 2022. As part of our original roading agreement. So that's the drop dead date that we have to work to, which we feel there's no risk whatsoever of us going even close to that date at this point in time. So the delay can be absorbed. There's been no financial implications of COVID at this time. The reason for the delay is that whilst this is just a design project now, looking to design the Phase 2 of Poto Road, we had been looking to get a consultant on site to do further geotechnical assessments and site checks as part of concluding the design. And so that's the work that we're not able to progress at this time. The designer on this project, Stantec, is based in Auckland. And so we'll be on hold until they're able to come up to the Kaipara to perform these works. Nothing further to add on that report. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on this item from elected members? I have a question, and it's a process-related question. For us at a governance level, when we reach conclusion of the design phase, which we've just heard has just been delayed, but when that absolutely ends, will this item remain as a standing item on this agenda, being, if you like, temporarily halted in the hope that there will be additional external funds added at some magical point, or will it just completely go from this agenda of this committee? Is there any process on that? Thank you. I guess that would be at a general manager level question, probably. Mr. Maris, thank you.
I'll give it a crack, Your Worship. Effectively, once this project is complete and we have the application for future funds ready to go, there'll be no need to continue to report it to this committee. However, you'll just have to accept that staff will have that in the back pocket ready to go if there are some external funding opportunities that come up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, that's clear from a process point of view. Thank you. Are there any further questions of elected members at this point? No questions, thank you. And I note at this point as well that we've lost Councillor Joyce Paki, but she's trying to reconnect to the system as well. Hopefully she'll be joining us again soon. All right, thank you. So at this point, if there are no further questions, we'll move into statements. A statement on this, of course, is the team is doing a very valiant job holding this together. It is extremely disappointing that the funding was pulled for completing this project, and that the intention of getting Poto community fully connected by a sealed road with the rest of the world is not going to be completed in the immediate horizon. So nevertheless, the team is doing a very good job to have the design completed so that we will be able to continue knocking at the door of in future for additional funding in this space. Thank you. Councillor Wilson-Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with your comments there. It is a real shame that this project has been a casualty of the climate that we're in right now, COVID delays and increased costs, and just the fact that everyone is out there with PGF funding trying to complete projects with all the same contractors. And unfortunately, this is the project that got the funding pulled. And yeah, it is a real shame, but the positive part of it is that we can complete that design, and hopefully that means that when some more funding comes available, we can just jump on it and get this project done. So just a thank you to the team for continuing with half a project. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there further statements from elected members? No further statements. Thank you. We'll put this to the vote now about the noting of this report. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So we're moving on now to Waipoua River Road. Thank you. And seeking a mover for this item. Councillor Wilson Collins, thank you. And a seconder. I'll second that. Thank you. Right. Joe, thank you.
Thank you. So Waipoua River Road bears no direct impact right now from COVID, so neither financially nor on the programme itself. There is, however, the risk that the cost of materials and the availability of materials will be impacted due to COVID and specifically the Auckland lockdown situation. The team have re-engaged Fulton Hogan, the contractor for this project, to renegotiate pricing. And we believe we will have confirmed final pricing by early October at latest, following which we would look to progress with the contract award. We are also in that time looking to see how we can fast track on material orders and looking to understand what we can even pre-order where possible, just to try and get ahead of, well, not quite ahead of the curve of COVID, unfortunately, but progress it as best we can, just knowing the risks that we do face. We will be looking to begin commencement of construction in November as the current plan. So you'll see the baseline dates have all been updated now to reflect the change of this project now that the principal has been identified to progress. As an aside, in the past month, I'd have discussions with Doc and Toroa also regarding setting up some sort of working group to work through the future maintenance of Waipoua River Road. And so that's a conversation that will continue to happen in the background of this project. And we're just awaiting confirmation from Doc as to who their representative on that group should be. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there questions for clarification here? I have a question, Joe. So as the, with council now being established, if you like, as the principal here, when we look at the report and we see that the components regarding the schedule and the budget and the risk have all gone from red, like very problematic, to amber, are you foreseeing that they will all go to green soon as council's good work as the expert safe pair of hands in this space moves forward, that will move into green? Or are you anticipating that this will remain in amber? I mean, it's not a crystal ball question. It's really is what we see in this chart, is that just that it's coming up to speed as our safe pair of hands?
That's a very fair way of putting it, Your Worship, yes. So just now it's currently amber on budget because there's still some unknowns, because we've not had that confirmed pricing back from Fulton Hogan as yet, or we've not reached a confirmed price rather. As soon as that is confirmed and it's within the realms of the budget, then that would move to green. Schedule is currently amber because of the unknowns that I mentioned around materials and also that pricing component still to be confirmed. There's quite a close correlation between the two. So again, once confirmed with the contractor around their programme of works, that too should move to green. So yes, it's the red to amber to green is a good transition that we work through. It's going from, we don't have a plan, we have a plan now and we're working through it, and we have a plan and it's working.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Safe hands. Are there any further questions for clarification? Councillor Withy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Joe, you might just clarify a point here. In your report on the project background, you make a comment there which I'd just like you to perhaps explain. And this is about the Te Roroa's objectives. And it says creating an enhanced single entry point for the Kauri walks and Tāne Mahuta experience. Now, a single entry point, the single entry point at present, of course, for Tāne Mahuta is coming off the state highway. This would suggest that once this road has been sealed, there will be a new entry point and that one would be closed. Is that the intention?
My understanding is that the overarching Raku Rakitenga, excuse the pronunciation, sorry, but the visitor centre project, as part of that, they are looking to move the access to Tāne Mahuta off of the state highway and instead via the visitor centre which has been established. So I believe that is what that sentence is referring to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? Councillor Curnow.
Just with regards to the maintenance working group, at what point, I'm just wondering, because one of the things that we discussed was that if council is involved in this, would there be any reflection of that in say concessions to local people to be able to access Tāne Mahuta and things like that? So has any of that been discussed? Is that part, where does that discussion fit in?
It was discussed previously with both Te Roroa and with the Department of Conservation when we were having discussions around this project in the larger realms of it all. And it's something that they said was palatable. We've just had to discuss and understand just what that actually could look like in the future. For clarity, the discussion around the maintenance and any potential subsidy or endorsement to the Kaipara community sits separate to this project itself. So the Waipoa River Road project is solely for the sealing of that, I believe it's 1.6 roughly, give or take, kilometre of road. And that is where this project formally starts and ends. It is deliberately used the term working group to the side of this project that will be working through that future maintenance agreement and having these sort of discussions.
Okay. All right. I just don't want us to lose sight of that, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? No further questions. Thank you. Statement, Councillor Wilson-Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just very excited that council has actually taken this project on as the principal and it can actually move forward now. I feel like it's been stuck in the mud, forgive the pun, for some time. So that's really awesome to see. This is an important project, an important road for the project that Te Roroa are trying to accomplish up in our Waiporo forest. And it's all about the protection of our trees and making sure that we can look after our kauri and try and eliminate the kauri dieback and control that, get that traffic off the state highway and have a proper experience, a real tourism asset that we can sell. And that I'm very excited about that. So I'm just, thanks so much team for getting this forward, and I look forward to the road getting finished. Thanks.
Thank you. Statement from me is that I'm also pleased that this project is proceeding and shifting out of being red flagged to a much more healthier trajectory. This was the first of all of the Provincial Growth Fund projects that were funded for anywhere in Kaipara District, and it was kind of only linked to Kaipara District Council, but nevertheless it was the first project announced here. So it's great that it is proceeding, and the Raka Rangatira project is of course a significant opportunity, as alluded to in Councillor Wethy's question just earlier. Is a significant project for Kaipara District because the only way anyone will be able to access the great trees of the Waipoa Forest will be through Kaipara District Council. That's a significant shift. So even though they'll be annexed, if you like, we have an interesting opportunity ahead regarding all of that in partnership with Whānau District Council. So all roads to the trees will lead through Kaipara only. So there you go. It's going to be a blast. Thank you again to the staff and team for pushing this one along and supporting here on behalf of all of the community. Thank you. Are there further statements? No further statements. Thank you. We're putting this to the vote now on the noting of this report. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to the unsealed roading network, the largest of our PGF projects. I'm seeking a mover for the noting of this. Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock, thank you, and Councillor Vincent seconding this. Thank you. Joe.
Thank you. So the unsealed road network carries no impact from COVID. So the COVID shutdown has occurred during the off season for these works. And so thankfully no programme or financial hit. Over the next month or so, we can expect to see the kilometres rehabilitated increasing again. So currently it's sat at just over 48 kilometres of road that's been 100% completed. So as we start moving into spring, you'll see that start to ramp up again as the teams remobilise. We have also a great milestone achievement on this project so far, as we have now spent the full PGF allotment, which was 3.1 million. And so that is us now into the IRG funding component of this project. So really, really good milestone for the team to have hit. They actually hit it exactly when they were required to, based on the MB contractual requirements as well. So really, really proud of your work. And that's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there questions for clarification? Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock, question.
Yes, thank you, Joanne. What is the total kilometre length of all of these roads added up? So there's a table on page 56 or 11 of your report that says 264 kilometres. Is that all of the roads added together?
Looking at that table, yes, I believe it will be, as it includes all 4 roading statuses. So yes, that should be the overall kilometre.
Thank you. And another question, the report mentions again the innovation of using a rip and replace on the low volume roads, pulling in gravel that has been graded to the road edges. And I was wondering, last month you weren't able to give us much information on that innovation, but do you have further information you could contribute today?
Yes, so the project manager, Bernard Peterson, who runs this programme of works, has kindly updated that in the activities going forward section of this report. It was quite a lot of information, so he felt it was better to put it down on paper for people to digest. So at the bottom of that section, you'll see an asterisk component, and that provides detail on what that rip and remake trial consists of.
Thank you. And just one final question. In terms of the activities for the road maintenance program, the phrase culvert replacement is used and water tabling. In the 48 kilometres that have been completed thus far, does that include every single of those culverts on the network being cleared?
So the 48 kilometres is 48 kilometres, which is 100% completed, which means that all works that were required to take place for that piece of road have been done. So as if there was works required on culverts, that would be included in that, yes.
Thank you, Joanne. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from other elected members in this space? No further questions. Thank you. Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock, statement, if you would, please, as the mover here.
Yes, I'm delighted to see this report and all the positive improvements that have been made. There's a very long list of roads here that are either in the design phase or with the works underway, and there are also a growing number of green roads which shows that the work has been completed. And it's also very helpful to see some of the photos attached which show, for example, in Trouncin Park Road area, a very significant earthworks project with a large culvert being replaced. So the big picture here for the Kaipara's unsealed road network is really positive, and great to see this work going forward. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Councillor Vincent, statement.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I totally endorse what the mover has just said, and I just say keep it up. It's really awesome to have a good news story like this to relate to, when so often roading is a bad news story in Kaipara. So thanks for keeping it going.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there further statements from elected members here? Quick statement from me, again, emphasises what the mover and seconder have just said. This is very, very significant. We're starting to see works and new heavy metaling occurring across the district. Suddenly, there is, and it's coming at us quite suddenly, actually, it feels, improvements being made, and this shows all of the long amounts of work that have been going on in the background by the engineering team here and the roading team. So congratulations to everyone, and carry on, because we've still got a long way to go here, but I'm based on what we're seeing now and what we're seeing out in the field, if you like, I'm very confident that this is going to make a difference. All of this project and council's good management of this with the NTA is going to make a very, very significant difference to our poor old Kaipara roads. So it's a great thing. Thank you, everybody. Are there further statements? No further statements. We will put this to the vote now on the noting of this report. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. I'm just going to check in with everybody. We've been going for a full hour now. I'm happy for us to adjourn the meeting for 10 minutes for everyone to stretch their legs. Would people like to do so? Just seeing nods of that. Yes, I'm seeing yes. Okay, right. Thank you. We'll adjourn at this point. We will resume at 10:45 a.m., which is now in 9 minutes' time. Thank you. Kia ora. Right, the elected members will be joining us all again soon. They're all coming back on screen. No mai, haere mai. Come on back in. And then we will be continuing our agenda for today with the next item, which is regarding the Kaihu Valley Trail. So we'll just wait just a little moment longer to 10:45. I hope you all enjoyed your good break outside. The rain has cleared over the Kaipara, so could go and stretch the legs a bit. Right, we'll make a start now. We have a quorum for this meeting, so we're proceeding. Thank you, Joe, with the Kaihu Valley Trail. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Your Worship. So the Kaihu Valley Trail.
Sorry,
Councillor Wills.
Councillor Wills is moving that. Sorry, Councillor Wills is moving that, and Councillor Wilson Collins is seconding that. Thank you. The noting of this item. Thank you.
I was too eager to go ahead, too keen.
Oh, my fault. Please carry on, Joe.
Thank you. So Kaihu Valley Trail, as regards to COVID, there has been an impact to the programme, however, no impact to budget at this time. The impact in programme has been due to delays that COVID has resulted in regarding the cultural impact assessment. We had initially been optimistic to receive a finalised CIA from Te Roroa within the past few weeks. But unfortunately, with COVID situation, the Te Roroa board meeting did not occur as initially planned. And we were also unable to perform the hui, which was intended with Taitia Marae. As the request was for this to be an in-person hui, and so naturally the lockdown has delayed that event from occurring. The cultural impact assessment does sit on the critical path for this project, and what that means is that it's a key deliverable for us to be able to start construction works. So there is a risk of delay, or likely delay now actually rather than risk, to the construction work starting, which was initially intended on the 1st of October. And that is because we cannot receive our earthworks consent without having that CIA formally submitted to the planners as part of the process. I have spoken with MB directly regarding this, and they are aware of the delay and of the situation, and they are comfortable with it, given the situation being very much out of our control as far as COVID goes, unfortunately. So the team is just working closely with Te Roroa to ensure that we progress things at pace, and have been working closely with the council's planners as well to ensure that we have all of our ducks in a row, so that as soon as we have that documentation, we're able to hit the ground running and progress. That's all. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Are there questions for clarification here regarding the Kaihu Valley Trail? Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is the portions of the trail that are going on road. Will the plan be for those, for the route to be a work in progress, and while there are blocks or obstacles in achieving an off-road route completely, that the long-term vision is to sort of negotiate those access and easements across properties, or to realign the route in the future?
Yes, so the long-term vision would be to have a full end-to-end route, fully serviced as well. The approach that's been taken right now by the project is on the basis that we applied for 9 million and received 4 from MB, which is a great amount to get us started on this project and put down some solid foundations. And so we're taking that approach of doing what we can with that 4 million, with a view of there being a long-term journey here, whereby we try and seek additional funding and take additional opportunities to further enhance the trail itself. So in the moments it would be looking at the on-road elements, for example, and going, where can we enhance these? Do we move them off-road? Do we just improve the facility? Questions like that.
Another question is the you know, there are 5 maraes along the route, and I was wondering, it's difficult for you probably to go into detail, but how the communication engagement is going with our iwi partners for the project. Are there specific blocks, or is there generally a positive regard for the opportunities that the project might bring for whānau?
So Taitia marae are the final marae in the consultation process. All of our marae have now been consulted with and formally engaged with. As with anything, I suppose there's always a range of, you know, attitudes, perspectives on these things, but generally speaking, the feedback from the project has been that the community are really starting to feel engaged in the project, or starting to demonstrate engagement in the project, and there seems to be an enthusiasm for the opportunities that the trail can bring.
Thank you. My final question, it might be out of scope, but the destination management plan that's talked about that Northland Inc. and Dargaville Community Development Board might collaborate on, can you talk to that? Is that, are all stakeholders going to be contributing to that work?
Unfortunately, that's not something I can talk to for any recent decisions anyway. The last I was across the destination management plan was some months ago, so I'd rather not say. Sorry, Councillor.
Kia ora, Your Worship. Through you, I can sort of add some value to that if you like. So we are currently awaiting the Northland Destination Management Plan to be released by Northland Inc. It's going through the final throes of confirmation. Once we do that, we're then going to work with Northland Inc. about how we can then get a team together, which would include the DCDB representatives, to look at a Kaipara Destination Management Plan, and therefore involving the projects from a Kaipara perspective in that space.
Thank you, Mr. Maris, for that contribution. That's helpful. Councillor Curnow, question for clarification.
Yeah, I'm just interested in the time it'll take to actually complete the work that we've got, sort of once we get started. How long do you estimate that will take?
So the overall programme itself was always built with a lot of flexibility to it, a lot of space, bearing in mind that initially when we drew up this programme, we were going to use the project as a training opportunity as well. So the overall completion time frame, which I think from memory is October next year,
Yeah,
we're still very much on track for achieving that. So despite the several delays that this project has experienced to date, because of the way the programme was initially structured, we believe that will be fine.
great. And I have one other question, if that's okay. How are we going with the non-marae landowners?
So we're still ongoing discussions with several landowners across the trail. I wouldn't know in detail, to be quite honest, Councillor, and that I actually would rather not speak to as well, specific landowner discussions that are progressing, but it's something that Amanda and the team are continually across. Yeah.
Okay, and there's nothing that in there that's sort of show-stopping at this point in time.
The fortune of this programme project and the approach we're taking around the separable portions, as you can see in the map, is that it gives us a degree of flexibility as to when we approach different components, and so the team is being quite deliberate around where we approach first as for construction. So it would be an area where we've got full support from that community and from any landowners in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? No further questions. Thank you. Statements. Councillor Wills.
I was actually lifting my hand to indicate it hadn't moved as opposed to actually moving it, but never mind. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's pretty self-explanatory. There's a lot of delays there. We've all discussed the potential benefit for Dargaville. There's some concerns around the timing And also, I'm noting that there was no commentary about whether the NZTA had come through with the funding that we should have heard by now this month for the Ahakiwi Bridge and the highway crossing, which were being part of announcements that would have come through in the last couple of weeks from the NZTA. Yeah, it's just another project where consequences of permission and consents is just slowing us all down. But the reality is that no physical work could have been done over this winter period with the weather conditions like they are underfoot. I see the October 1st start date now that's pretty much a flexible number, I would imagine. Have it been a landowner on the other side and knowing where we are with the consents that are in place that have been applied for. I didn't want to sound like a negative person, but the reality is that this is a project that's dealing with so many different people with so many different views. It's taken quite a while for it to be put together, and I don't blame the staff or management for how long it's taking. Let's just hope we get to a conclusion at some point. That was really positive.
Thank you. Joe, we're in statements from the elected members now, but do you just have an extra addition there for clarification?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Just for clarification regarding the Rakutahi funding, so the funding we'd applied for via this project was in the low cost, low risk portion, and so we're still awaiting confirmation as to whether or not that will be awarded. So it was the National Land Transport Fund that we've received updates on to date. So just for clarity there.
Thank you. We'll take that as a question and a statement. And further information here from Jim Zephyr, General Manager, Infrastructure. Jim, you're on mute.
Sorry. Just to manage expectations, what Waka Kotahi have indicated is that funding for rural shared paths won't be included within the National Land Transport Programme. So you can expect to see some funding for urban cycleways, but probably unlikely to get funding for shared paths such as this through the National Land Transport Programme. But as Joe said, we'll confirm that once we get it in writing.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you. So elected members, I'd just like to remind you, please, to put your questions up front and then we'll get into the statements. Thank you. But thank you, officers, for those contributions as well. Councillor Wilson-Collins, statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. Just another project that I'm really excited to see progressing, even with all the delays that we've been having. And just thank you to Joe and Amanda for the work, and the rest of the team for the work of and the challenges that we're facing to get such an extraordinary project, such a long-term project, finally with some traction. So really looking forward to that construction starting. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there further statements? Councillor Delavaris Woodcock. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so I have marked my calendar for the 3rd of December sod turning event. It's a bit a disappointment that it was meant to happen on the 1st of October, but due to COVID and the other delays such as the cultural impact assessment. Nevertheless, I'm an optimist through and through, and I absolutely believe in this project getting there one way or the other. And I would just like to note that from the list of activities last month, this month, and in the next 2 months to come, it's momentous. The number of stakeholders, all the different strands, all the different work programs, all the different construction elements and transport elements and bridges and landowners and marae and our iwi partners. There are so many wonderful community people coming together on this, and so that's what I'm really interested in, and I think it's a kind of game changer for Kaipara, because I don't think we've done something so ambitious. Maybe the other project that comes to mind is the Mangawhai Shared Path, which is also, logistically a real challenge. But this is up there with the challenge level. And so I'm really proud to see it coming along and progressing. And of course, there's going to be glitches with a project of this size and vision. So well done to you, Joe, and to Amanda, and looking forward to updates as they come through.
Thank you. Are there further statements? Councillor Curnow and Councillor, Councillor Curnow, thank you.
Yeah, just a short statement just to reiterate my commendation to the officers involved in this project. It is complex in, I imagine at times, testing the work involved with all the many different work streams to bring it to actually being able to do it. However, I come back to the fact that this is a transformational project, not just for Dargaville, but actually for the whole of the centre of Kaipara as well, because it will link up to cycle trails and walking trails that will go right the way through. So the Kaihu Valley Trail is not just about the Kaihu Valley, it's actually transformational for the whole of Kaipara. So yeah, I look forward to it being able to commence with that sod turning event, and yeah, to actually having people coming to our part of the world to visit, to explore the hidden beauties that we have, not just the extraordinary beaches that people know about, but these wonderful little valleys and trails and forests that this will open up to people. So yeah, thank you, staff, for your work on this, and look forward to keeping it going.
Thank you. Are there further statements? I have a quick statement. Thinking as I do in pictures, I'm fascinated at watching the map progress. Every one of these meetings, the map changes. Parts of this very long route are being confirmed as to where the route is going to go. We go from being uncertain to certain. And that is very, very exciting. It's like this a vision coming clearer to us of where this trail is going to be, and how the people will be able to benefit from it for forever more, really, from here on. It's very, very exciting. I think the journey of this development, despite the fact it is very, very slow, is so because, you know, good things take time, and we have one opportunity to get this right, and I congratulate everyone for the due diligence and the care that is at work here. And I'd also would like to say that I'm looking forward to the Huia Iwi at Taita Marae. It had to be postponed. It's been was rescheduled a couple of times, and then it's been postponed now due to the COVID, and that's regrettable. It's an important part of the piece of the route and of the story, and so looking forward to that hui, and to progressing out the other side of that with everyone you know, in the waka together, which is very much the journey that this is on. So congratulations everyone, and to Amanda Bennett out there, who is doing our community engagement work. A special shout out to her and the entire team in this space. Kia ora, thank you. Are there further statements? There are no further statements. Thank you. So we'll put the noting of this to the vote now. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on, Mangawhai shared path. Joe.
I'll move that.
Councillor Wethy moving that and Councillor Larson seconding that. Thank you.
Thank you. So Mangawhai shared path, as we know, this is broken into two phases now. So phase one being the construction phase currently underway, and phase two being that bridge and boardwalk component. Phase one has experienced a delay due to COVID. So it's a delay of around about 2.5 weeks to the intersections part of the project. We had previously tried to expedite that programme so that it would be completed prior to Christmas. Unfortunately, this delay means that it will be just after Christmas that we will most likely achieve completion of that bit. Really unfortunate given the volume of traffic that comes through Mangawhai at that time of year. The team at United Civil, alongside Tim Manning, were working tirelessly, coming up with plans of what they could do in that level 3 period, and had actually developed quite an elegant plan that would enable them to catch up on the programme. And then, much to, I think, everyone's surprise, level 3 actually was very short-lived, which obviously is fantastic for the broader Kaipara, but unfortunately limited the opportunity for us to catch up on our programme as well. There is a financial impact from COVID as well to this project of, we believe, approximately 150,000. And we believe at this time that can be absorbed by the project contingency itself. So that's still being worked through with the contractor. The phase 2 component, we have recently received provisional confirmation from Whakakotahi that they will be funding phase 2 of the Mangawhai shared path, which is a tremendous achievement for the council, I think, to get that potential funding in this climate. So that will be worked through by Tim with the NTA team to just understand exactly what that funding allotment will look like now. But we're in a really, really positive space there, which is fantastic news. And I believe that's all I have on Mangawhai shared path. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Are there questions for clarification? Councillor Wethy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. John, you might be able to give us an update. One of the parts of the project down at the village end, in the middle of the second of the roundabouts, which is the one on the Molesworth Moyer Street intersection. North Power, we're going to remove the power pole that's in the middle of the works there, and that was due to take place on the Wednesday immediately after we went into lockdown. Now, I would have thought, I was rather hoping that they would have been able to get onto that last week when we came out of level 4 into level 3. As of Monday afternoon, it had still not been shifted. Have you got any update? Because that's going to be really holding back any other progress from United Civil unless they get that power pole out of the way.
I don't have an update to that right now, but I will speak with Tim later today and send an update to the group, if you like, Councillor.
That'd be good. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's the main thing. Except, is there a plan for Tim and United Civil to try and pick this program up? I know it's a big ask, but I kid you not, this is going to be a significant commercial disaster if we don't have the ability for those businesses that are affected in this area available to have, you know, their normal Christmas commercial traffic through them, because, you know, Mangawhai is one of those towns that they only survive in the 6 months during the off season, with the benefits during the on season. So this is more than just significant, and I just hope that we can. Is this still going to have an opportunity to try and pull that a couple of weeks back?
So I see Jim has put his camera on. Jim, are you wanting to talk to it?
I was, if you didn't have anything, what I was going to say was that we should be preparing ourselves that the works won't be complete ahead of Christmas. I think the team had pulled out all the tricks that they had to try and get this done. I know we had this conversation 2 years ago with Tomarata Bridge, where we were really pushing to get it done before Christmas, and in the end we had to keep it construction working over the Christmas period, and there was some disruption there, but through good communication and traffic management, that impact was minimized. So I I'll let Joe speak, and Joe might come back. And I know the team are really proactive in this space. They've been really, they work so hard through COVID to try and find a way of doing this. So if there is a way of doing it, this is the team that will do it. But from a governance perspective, it's more about damage limitation and managing expectations through that Christmas period.
Are they still, Joe, you might be able to answer this one. Are they still planning to work double shifts on the roundabouts as they had advised the community at the meeting at the golf club prior to lockdown?
So the plan that was in place to expedite the programme, which I believe is what was discussed with the community as well around the double shifts and so forth, that will still continue. It's just a case of the expedited programme has experienced a delay of not being able to progress the works. Just one thing I would like to share, I mean, as Jim quite rightly said, for the team that will do it, I really do believe it is this team. United Civil worked until midnight on the day that lockdown was announced to try and conclude some cement works and try and progress some water blasting to mitigate the impact of level 4 to the project. So they are incredibly invested and they've been really fantastic with their involvement on this project. So trust me, I think they are looking at every opportunity.
Yeah. No, I certainly agree with your comments there on United Civil. They've been most impressive. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Question for clarification, Councillor Curnow.
Yeah, just following on from that, it is the team, I imagine they probably are, but I'm just checking. Are they coming up with a plan for how they minimise the disruption through that absolute peak time? Yeah, that may even involve stopping work and just closing down the site so that people can move around through the space when there's that enormous influx. I hate to talk about slowing the project down, but just in terms of people being able to access the businesses and move around in that space, it's so important that that's made possible.
Yeah, so the immediate focus has been how can we speed the programme up to avoid any impact. Moving on from that, it will then be how can we, now we know what the programme is, how can we mitigate the impact? And so I think that's when Tim and the team will be working through, what is the right thing to do is really what it'll all come down to. Whether there has be a slight delay to completion of the works to allow more movement in the space, or we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So that is the next step. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock, your hand is raised there. Mistakenly raised. Yeah, okay, not raised now. Okay, thank you. Further question, I have a question. Is the comms team moving in advance of this changed plan, and I'll say the change plan, i.e. the delays, considering the public had our community meeting 5 weeks ago, and they had a set of would fairly have a set of expectations right now. So if there are new expectations, is the comms team across this working to inform the community in advance so no one's surprised by what's afoot here?
Yes, the comms team work closely with Tim on all of his projects. So yes, I don't believe we've gone out with anything formal as yet, and that would be due to just waiting to see where the COVID situation leaves us. So once we know something confirmed, but I think you can expect to see some communications come out, I would believe in the next week, most likely.
Thank you. And so would there need to be another community meeting such as the one that took place at the golf club to help update the people on the revised plan, or all of which is it's tough, but we need to make sure that no one's left behind here in the way that Councillor Wethy described. So would there be another public meeting, Jim? Jim,
I think all I'm going to say is what Joe was going to say, which is the engagement plan would be developed, and they will use appropriate techniques to make sure the community are fully engaged. And Joe will come back with more of an explanation about the detail of what that looks like. But I know it's not just it's not just those one-off meetings. The team are meeting on a regular basis with businesses on a one-to-one basis. So there's the engagement plan is quite detailed in that regard. I think the other thing in terms of community engagement is once we do get the confirmation around the funding for the next phase, that's something again that needs to be communicated to the community, because it's quite a substantial investment, and in a year where there hasn't been a lot of funding available through Waka Kotahi, there is funding available for probable funding, so it's either probable or possible. Probable is more probable, more of a chance coming off. Possible means less chance, but yeah, I think that would be good news to communicate.
Thank you.
What I would add, Your Worship, sorry, is the community session that was held recently at the golf course was instigated by members of the community. So they had reached out to council looking to discuss the specific challenges they were experiencing around traffic at the intersections. And we received really great engagement through that session, and it was a real problem-solving session. So whether or not it's another forum like that would very much be determined, I think, by the community need as well. Whereas if it's just information sharing, there might be a more effective way we can do that.
Thank you. Thank you. I have another question, and it relates to what Jim was just talking about. Waka Kotahi came out last week with the confirmation of the road funding for Kaipara, and they talked about the Mangawhai shared path being the great big Kaipara project, which is excellent. And so here we are talking on this subject. If my memory serves me correctly, it was flagged as being a $14 million project of funding for the Mangawhai shared path. Can you talk to, if you like, into some of that space about principally when are we going to get clarity, if you like, as elected members about that additional piece of funding?
Sure. I'll let Joe cover off exactly if there's any more detail, but essentially we've got the letter. We know there's probable funding. There's some work to do with Waka Kotahi to confirm that everything is in place. And for this project, everything is in place. We have a business case that's approved. We have a network operating framework which was endorsed. And we have all the procurement in place to execute it. The funding includes the design, a large part of it is design development for the whole shared path, so the whole connection all the way up to the heads, as well as some construction. But we'll be able to confirm it once it's in the TIO, so Transport Investment Online. That's when we essentially get the approval from Waka Kotahi. So probably, I imagine by the next meeting, this next externally funded meeting, we'll be able to give some more clarity on that. I don't know, Joe, if you've got anything else to add.
No, I'd just be repeating your comments. Thanks, Jim.
Okay, thank you. Are there further questions for clarification here about the Mangawhai shared path project? Councillor Weddy.
Yeah, just one further point. Is there any further you've got a green light associated with the resource consent for the standalone bridges up by the causeway. Is that meaning we've got the consent for those?
No, unfortunately not, councillor. So the consent is still in process. It's green because we believe that there's no significant risks to achievement of that consent. Due to the engagement that the team have done with the primary stakeholders around it.
Okay. Have you got any expectation when you'll be receiving that consent?
The target date is by the end of December at latest. I think it might be middle of December actually, sorry, rather than end. So that's what the team will be working to. And as I say, currently we've got no reason to believe we won't achieve that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? None. Right. Okay. So statements. Councillor Wethy, statement on this.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, look, all I can ask of the project team is to leave no stone unturned as far as trying to minimise the blowout on this from the original target of getting it completed before Christmas. I'm sure they will be working like that, but you know, I think in view of the potential to blow out after Christmas, then as the Mayor has already highlighted, the importance of the communication with not just the business owners, but the community at large is going to be absolutely paramount. So I think that that's got to be really given a very significant look at to make sure that we don't end up ending up with a major community issue on our hands. This is a big project that affects virtually everyone who resides in Mangawhai, plus all the visitors who will flood in here over Christmas, New Year. And don't forget, we've got Northern Base, and anyone who's been here during the Northern Base 3 days leading up to New Year knows how much extra pressure that puts on the local community. All this is going to be happening with an incomplete project if the timeframes still remain out after Christmas. So please, everyone, don't underestimate what we're sitting on here. That's all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Larson.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I concur with a lot of what Councillor Wethy has just said, and I won't repeat that, but it is an accelerated project as it stands at the moment, so we're aiming for a much quicker completion than we had originally anticipated, so we do need to take it in that context as well. I really would just want to commend Tim for continuing to run this project so smoothly. It's almost all green lights despite major complications, and it's an extremely complicated project, and so I'm just pleased to see it trucking along, and it sounds like we're very lucky with our contractor as well. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there further statements? No further statements here. Right, we'll put this to the vote now on the noting of this report. All those in favour, please raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. We'll move now to the Kaiwaka footbridges. Councillor Larson will be moving this. Councillor Wethy will second this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe.
So, sorry, jumping ahead. Kaiwaka footbridges bears no impact of COVID to date, and that's due to it currently being in the design phase. So we did award the design and build contract to Bridget, and so design is now very much underway. There was a question that came through from the pre-read regarding the gifting of land on Gibbons Road. I think when the question came through, it was relating to Mangawhai Shared Path, but just for clarity, that piece of work relates to the Kaiwaka Footbridges project, and it is a piece of land that if you were on the road facing north, it's on your right-hand side for that second bridge, northward bound. And it's been kindly gifted to council to enable accessway to the footbridge. So that's something that the team are currently working through. Other than that, nothing further to add on Kaiwaka footbridges. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Joe. Are there questions for clarification? There are no questions for clarification here, probably because it's all green lights at this point. So thank you. So we're moving into statements now. Councillor Larson, sorry, can you join us again? Thank you.
Can you hear me now? I seem to be frozen.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. If you just leave your camera off, if that's technically bandwidth challenging right now.
I think I'm back up and running.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, my computer died at the exact moment that Joe started speaking. So if I missed anything, excuse me. Yeah, I have some similar feelings about this project as the Mangawhai shared path, and it's the same project manager as well. We've had some fairly delicate stuff going on behind the scenes to strategically get the right pieces of land and stuff, and it seems to all be progressing. So just looking forward to seeing it implemented. I think it's going to be a great project. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further statements, Councillor Withy?
No, just to concur with what Councillor Larson said, this is a significant project from Kaiwaka's point of view. And I think that everyone's looking forward to its completion. So very good to see that it's progressing without any delays. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Quick statement from me. I just have to acknowledge here the extraordinary contribution of the McLean family of Kaiwaka. And in this particular riverside part of Kaiwaka village. And so acknowledging that at this point, and as we go forward, their contribution will become clearer for everybody, I'm sure, as we're already doing work in McLean Park on one side of the road, and then we have another piece of McLean property now being gifted to the project. These are extraordinary contributions from great old family contributors to Kaipara District. So it's needs to be acknowledged at this point. Thank you. Are there any further statements? No further statements. Right. Thank you. We're putting this to the vote now on the noting of the Kaiwaka footbridges reports. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. So now we move to the financial overview of all of these projects combined in one glorious, simple spreadsheet. So I'm happy to move this item. Thank you. And seeking a seconder for this, Councillor Wilson Collins. Thank you. Joe, over to you to lead us through this. Thank you.
Thank you. So what I would like to draw attention to is, first of all, the column of financial year budget. Just to address it, that has now been updated to reflect this current financial year, so 21-22. Bearing in mind that these reports are always reporting the actual financials 1 month prior, due to when the council books close. We've also added into this report the Wharf's holding budget, and we felt that was appropriate given that it has been relevant to several discussions of late, and so just to provide greater transparency as well of what remains in that budget line. So just over 9,000 currently, and that's currently not assigned to any specific project. And that's all I have. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Joe, are there any questions for clarification? There appear to be no questions for clarification at this point. Okay, so that's very straightforward. So a statement from me here is, of course, there are no questions for clarification because the matters and the information presented is clear for these elected members. So that's good. Thank you. I would like to note the budget spent to date column, and it's so from a statement perspective, if you like, noting if you like how far we've come, but also for some of these projects, how far we have to go still regarding them. And there's still a lot of water to go under the bridge here, whether that's a footbridge or an Ahi Kiwi bridge or whatever kind of bridge. So nevertheless, we've come a very long way in a short space of time, and congratulations to the team on this and the clear reporting here. Thank you. Councillor Wilson-Collins, statement, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just nothing further to add to your comments there.
Thank you. Are there any other statements from elected members at this point? No further statements. Thank you. Putting this to the vote now. All those in favour of noting this, say aye. Against? That is passed. Thank you. So that's the financial overview done. So we're now in the closing stretches of the meeting with the program update, which is another chart. So to move this, Councillor Joyce Paki, would you like to move this? Could we have a thumbs up from Councillor Joyce Paki? Yes, is that good? You're happy to move this? Can't hear you at all, Councillor Joyce Paki. Could you just give a thumbs up? Are you happy to move this item? We have a visual signal. Are you happy to move? Yes? Okay, we'll consider that. No, so you're not happy to move. Right, Councillor Wethy, happy to move this.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And a seconder for this. Councillor Curnow, thank you. Right. Right, so it's on the table. Trying to keep everyone involved. Thank you. Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the programme timeline is the visual representation of where we believe we are going to achieve the specific milestones. So just a reminder there, what we're showing is our expected completion date rather than the contractual or baseline completion date. I have just on looking at this in the larger screen noticed one error in the Kaihu Valley Trail row where it shows the obtaining earthworks consent coming at the end of October and construction commencement coming at the start of October. That construction commencement should be pushed out because that can only occur after that earthworks consent has been obtained. So apologies for the error in that piece. What I would like to just really call out around all of these milestones is these milestones and our achievement of them is based right now on what we know currently with COVID. So it's not taking into account any potential future lockdowns, even if, based on the likelihood, we've decided to go purely on what we know at this moment in time. It's also not taking into account potential delays to materials or further supply chain impacts as a result of the COVID situation itself, or even potentially one concern we have is we might receive delays to tender responses, for example, or increased pricing through tenders as a result of the COVID impact. So it's something we are very aware of as a team, and we're working through it on all of the projects within council, to be honest, within the delivery remit, not only these ones. But for now, we're basing the doability and the status on what we know at this exact moment. And that's all from me. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Are there questions for clarification? Councillor Wethy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Joe, just on the Mangawhai shared path, as you know, the portion of the shared path in front of Mangawhai Central is being constructed by Mangawhai Central to council specifications, etc. But how? So it doesn't impact on the budget costs. But how does it feature in your completion targets here? Is that going to be done within the? You see, I presume you've only listed the ones that are council controlled. Do you know where that portion of the shared path is going to be completed?
You are correct. We have only listed the ones that come under direct council control and the direct council scope for delivery. I'm not too sure, to be quite honest, councillor, when it's scheduled to be completed. It's not something I've got detail of. Jim, possibly?
So the indications we have from the indications that we'd had from the developer was that the works would be complete by July 22. It's to some extent depends on their tie-ins to the new roundabouts. They've got to get the traffic onto the new roundabouts, which they're working through that process at the moment in terms of how they're going to manage that traffic. Clearly, they've also been affected by COVID, with most of their team stuck on the Auckland side of the border. So that's going to have an impact on their program as well. So we'll need to come back to you just to try and get an updated figure, but to some extent, it will depend on when Auckland comes out of COVID as well. So yeah, a few factors at play there.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Vincent, question for clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My only query is, I was wondering, for future presentations, as a convenience, would it be possible to state the projects in the same order in that item as they appear earlier in the agenda, just for the flow of things? Because trying to look at stuff on a small screen is, like, I've got two screens operating at the moment, but it's the smaller one that's got the information on it, and it would be just a bit easier for me if they followed the same order. That's all.
We can definitely do that. What I might do is actually change the order of the reports to align with the programme visual, as opposed to changing the programme visual, if that's okay, because it's quite a pernickety programme that I use to develop it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And that's definitely the word of the day. Well done, in the spirit of the best word of the day, pernickety. Well done. We are seeking any further questions for clarification. I have a question for clarification. It's looking at this stage like there are some opening events with the River Road, with Pahi Wharf, and arguably the Kaiwaka Footbridge. Sorry, I'm taking a kind of an average here. Could be on potentially the same period of time, and or the same kind of phase, if you like, of the calendar. Is there any thought yet to inviting any guests for those, and or when would if you were looking at any senior people attending those, their diaries are worked months in advance, and so they would need to be signaled that these things are coming? Is there any progress on that? Thank you.
So the communications team, Ruby Mitchell in particular, is across the lion's share of these projects currently, with the exception of Kahu Valley Trail. And so, yeah, that's something that she has discussed with me on several occasions as well, around how we get notable persons to these events and plan around it. So we don't have anything diarised or scheduled as yet, but yes, rest assured it's very much on her watch list. She's very keen to make it happen.
Thank you. That's clear. Councillor Vincent, question for clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just could add in there too, at some point there'll be the formal opening of the dementia unit at Mangataroto. Like, as originally scheduled, the dawn blessing for that would have clashed with the blessing for the Pahi Wharf. So I just wonder if it's not a council project, but it is of significance locally that might be useful if whoever Ruby is might be able to liaise with them to see that there isn't a clash there too, if at all possible.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? No further questions for clarification. Statements on this item. Councillor Wethy.
No statements from me. I think it's all pretty straightforward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Curnow.
Yeah, it's clear and obvious what's happening. There is a lot going to happen in the next 3 months, so it's going to be quite exciting, and hopefully we don't get any more interruption from COVID, because there's a lot to do in the next 3 months. So I look forward to that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Further statements. Councillor Vincent, your hand is up here. No statement. Councillor Wilson-Collins, statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a thank you to Joe for pulling all this information together for us again for another month. Monthly updates come around pretty quickly, and every time this agenda comes up, I feel like we just learned about all this, and then you find out that so much has happened in such a short period of time, and you're keeping on top of everybody, which is really awesome to see. And I'm a total geek, so I really appreciate those 2 reports at the end where everything comes together, and we can just see the whole snapshot of everything progressing. So just a huge thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you. Further statements. Quick statement from me. Yes, I'd like to congratulate Joe again for the clarity of this work, and we can see alignments. We can see the vision, the arc, if you like, of how things are going to fit together, and this helps to show visually, if you like, the large amount of work that's going on right across Kaipara district, from the very edge on one side to the very edge on the other, to the very edge on the other. The 3 extreme points of the triangle geographically of Kaipara district, we have significant projects going on at the very, very edges, let alone in the middle. So it is an extraordinary amount of work that's going on here, and it's wonderful to see. So thank you for helping make this clear for us. And you could see, yeah, we can all see what's going on here. It's all very clear. Thank you. Further statements? Okay, just before we close this item, I'd like to apologise to Councillor Joyce Paki for at the commencement of this item where it might have seen that I was trying to press her into moving the item, and of course her technology has failed her regrettably, and so she couldn't be able to speak or contribute to the item, which is as per in the chat conversation on the side of the screen here, is why Councillor Joyce Paki was unable to move or second the item at the beginning of this. So aroha mai, apologies there for that, or for any misunderstanding in that space. At this point, we're putting this item to the vote to be noted. Thank you. So all those in favour, please raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. That is the noting of this item. This brings us to the end of our agenda for today's externally funded projects committee meeting at this point. So I would like to congratulate everyone on what has been the work that we have undertaken here, and for today's special meeting. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Jim Sefton for his extraordinary leadership of all of this work as the General Manager of Infrastructure over many over years now and many, many months, and detailed and careful work and visionary leadership for all of Kaipara District Council, but specifically in the space of all of these infrastructure related projects. Today marks the last of these externally funded project committee meetings, which Jim will be able to attend for a while because he is going on secondment to help the government with the Three Waters reform program. But Jim, it is certainly acknowledged the extraordinary leadership and contribution you've made here, and thank you for that and for assembling the team that you have here in the infrastructure space. For Kaipara District Council, so at the next of these externally funded project meetings, Sue Davidson will be the new acting general manager of infrastructure. So again, we're in safe and capable hands here. But Jim, just acknowledging you here, and thank you very much for everything you're doing here with us. And we look forward to you being back after your secondment in 6 months' time. So that's another story. Thank you. So at this point, I would like to close the meeting with a karakia. Thank you. Kia tauna manakitanga te mea ngaro, ki runga ki teina a tātou, kia mahia ke te hua makihikihi, kia toi te kupi, toi te mana, toi te araha, toi te reo Māori, tihei Māori ora. Kia ora, kia pai tōra. Have a good day. Kia pai tōra.